Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and in this video we're going to talk about playback for church lighting. So a lot of times there's a few ways that I recommend people kind of program and set up their cues for church lighting, no matter what type of system you're using, no matter how you trigger it, and in this video we're going to talk about that. So I'm here, I'm on an Onyx NX1, but you could be on Onyx, you could be on any of the lighting consoles we recommend, and this video will apply to you because it's generic in that sense, right? It's not about this lighting console, though we like these a lot. It's about lighting in general. So the first thing is, if you're like a more traditional church, right? You're not doing a bunch of flashy, fancy stuff. Maybe you don't even have volunteers to really run your service. What lighting cues do you need to make a service happen, right? Well, a lot of times it's going to be pretty simple. So you guys are going to have, first off, house lights. So we'll take those, turn off highlight, and we'll dial in a nice color on them. Okay. We'll bring in, or actually we have a warm white saved somewhere. Yeah. So bring them up to a nice warm white like this, right? And we'll set the percentage that we're happy with. Nice and bright. And again, these would be wider and not so dotty in real life. I don't think I have the right lens in the visualizer. And then we would go ahead and save this as our walk-in. Now, depending on your lighting console, you know, that may be as simple as choosing the right camera. Then you might program that, for example, to an on-screen button like I have here in Onyx, where I could have a walk-in button and then the rest of my buttons for the rest of my service. And then, sorry, looking at the camera. But I could also have it on the playbacks. I could have, you know, the first one being my walk-in, a volunteer could press that, or we could fire it from a MIDI command. You know, the second one could be the second part, third part, etc., etc. Okay. The one thing I do say though is, especially when working with volunteers and whatnot, I like to, for any lighting cue like this is my, you know, my main, my walk-in, I want them to play it, and then my goal is that it gets played back and looks exactly like this every time it gets played back. Because of that, I like to put them on buttons, and so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to build a button for that. Okay, record that. I'm not doing it for real though. And so the reason why I like to do them on buttons like this, on an on-screen button versus a fader, is because a fader, obviously, right, if you look at it, has a level to it, right? It has a level control. And so that means if the volunteer accidentally knocks it to 80% or 50% and they don't notice it, it gets played back. Now your lighting is not at full like you thought it was going to be. And you might be on stage as the worship leader or something like that, and you can't fix it. So that's why for cues in lighting where it doesn't need to have level control, and you just want it to be consistent, to be the same every time, which you want if there's cameras in the room, which there are at pretty much any church these days, then save it to something without a fader, so that it can just get played back. Either a volunteer presses it, a MIDI command could come out of ProPresenter or Proclaim, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so that's the first one. What's next? Well, there's the start of the service, right? So the next cue I often make, at least at my church, is for the worship. So that's where the house lights are going to start to come down, right? We're going to put the focus on the stage a little more, and we're going to bring up our stage wash. And we recorded something wrong there. That's okay. So we go ahead and we bring up our stage wash as well as our house lights. Now for worship at my church, we keep things pretty bright, but every church is different. Some churches go dimmer, some go brighter. Okay. So I'm going to record that to a button. Okay. Next, and I should have some backlight in there too, actually. So we'll go ahead and bring these up. We'll go ahead and grab our position that we predefined. Go ahead and zoom them a little wider. Okay, so maybe we do that. Maybe we give them a color because, hey, you know, having a little bit of color can definitely make things look nicer. So go ahead and give ourselves a nice color for the backlight. There, maybe we grab our strips on the side, and we're going to give them a color. Bring them up to full, or whatever looks best. Again, you never have to run lights at full when you're programming for a church. Don't think you have to run things to full. Just run them to what looks like right both to your eye in the space and the camera. And decide, always, is it more important to make the camera look great or the in-person? And prioritize one over the other, of course, trying to make it look good on both. And we've got tutorials here. I know there's a video on that somewhere. So then we go ahead and grab our strip lights. Give them a nice color. It's a very blue morning at church here. Okay, so that could be our worship cue, for example. You could have a cue if it's a more traditional church for each song. You could name them by the song, or just have a general cue for your worship lighting, right? Now let's transition to a announcements and preaching look. That's the next thing I do typically in more traditional churches. Okay, so I'm going to take, for that, my main wash, my stage is going to go down. Okay, I left my backlights up there since the band still is up there at that point of the service. Bring up my preaching lights, and now we've brought the focus on that lower platform. Okay, awesome. So we'll save that. Then that could also serve as our preaching look, but we might, for our preaching look, go and grab our wash lights and bring them to that preaching position where they're just a little bit more forward than they were before, right? And so now that's a little bit far, but now we're backlighting that preacher. We'd probably tilt him in a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Bring him in a little bit like so. Back up. Killer. Looks great. Okay. That could be a preaching look, and then, you know, we're pretty much done. If you do something different for communion, you might save that as a cue. You might save cues for things like weddings, special events. But for a traditional church, you know, 5 to 6, you know, less than 10 different cue buttons often is everything you need for a typical week. Okay. Now let's talk about, okay, if you're a church that's doing a more modern style of worship, how do you lay that out? Well, there's a few ways to do it, right? So the first is, I'm going to clear everybody out. The first is we're going to start where we started before. And I typically have base cues for each part of the service. You know, a walk-in look, a announcements look, a worship look, a preaching look. And these base cues, what they're going to do is set things like the level of the house lights, the level of the front wash, so that they're really optimized for video and for consistency. And a lot of times I have people trigger that, even if there's a lighting operator, trigger that from your presentation program, because then they'll be consistent every week. Then what does the lighting operator do? Well, the lighting operator then is in charge of really customizing the lighting to the songs for that week. And so what that might look like is, for example, in a given song, they might go and say, hey, we're going to grab our wash fixtures, we're going to bring them up, we're going to put them all to the ceiling for this fixture, and we're going to turn them, I always use blue, we're going to turn them magenta. Then we grab our house lights and we turn them a deep blue, and we take them down a little, right? You know, then we go ahead for this song and, and we grab our moving washes. We put them, oh wait, we already had the moving washes in. Grab our moving spots. We bring them up. We cross them. We stick those ones at the walls. We pop a gobo in them, which I know aren't working in this profile, which I missed. but they should be there soon. And I drop a color in it too. These are CMY, so they're able to make some great colors. Okay, cool. Now I've got that. That might be a cue that I could run a variety of ways. I could customize that to the song. So this cue could be the first song, or maybe this cue, turn the spots off and bring up the main wash, of course, on my people. You know, this here could be the first cue of the song. I could go, if I'm in a more modern context, and take out of my main wash everything except the center ones, because the center two are maybe focused on my worship leader, right? So roughly, I could grab the ones that are not on the worship leader and pop them into a color. Excellent. And I clearly didn't get the right fixtures, but you get the idea. And we could record this either as a cue list named for that song, maybe on a button, etc. Then when we want to go ahead and add things like movement, we can go ahead and, let me just record this somewhere so I've got it. I'm just going to put it on my buttons. Play it. And then, you know, what I like to do with my faders most of the time in a console, and the NX1 is great because it has motorized faders, so you can have multiple pages, is I'm going to then go ahead and have some faders that can override the things that are in there. So for example, I can grab my washes, I can go to my position, and I could just build a very simple effect with them, okay? Very simple effect right here. They're going up and they're going down. Very simple, might work for your context, might not. Then I'm going to go, and what I do is I'm going to take it to the maximum speed that I could possibly want, because when I record this in Onyx, if I go and record this as an override type fader and stick it on the fader, what you'll see here is once I clear it, if I bring that fader up, I can gently bring it in, and then it's going to fade in, and it just moves a little. Okay. And if I bring it up all the way, sure, it'll move a lot, but I'm able to use it in varying degrees. I'm able to just bring it in just a tiny bit and just get a little bit of movement, or I can bring it a lot and get the full movement. And so a lot of times when I'm programming worship lighting or coaching people in it, we go ahead and we say, okay, you know, build out your different songs that you use into buttons on your console, into, hey, this is, you know, the intro, this is the verse, you know, we had set up our spots here for a chorus, so we could bring those in when the chorus comes in, and then maybe set something up for the bridge, set up a basic outline. You can have the volunteer trigger that, you can save it, you can name it. Again, this isn't really a console specific tutorial, but then give your volunteers the keys to be able to be creative and add things on their own. And so that might look like taking these fixtures right here that I brought to full and maybe saving them on a playback. Okay. Saving just the intensity. And now, at will, I can bring those in and pull them out. I could do that separately for the back ones or the wall ones. I could do that with different groups of lights. The biggest thing that I see when people are programming church lighting is they try to get too complex with layout, okay? And the thing you have to remember with lighting is great lighting when people walk away and don't notice the lighting but are impacted, and that's what makes it great, right? When those moments happen, it's not because the person running the lighting had every possible thing at their disposal across this console, right? It's not that they had banks and banks of faders and tons of buttons with all of the things on it. They may have had all those things. But the reason why the lighting was so effective, more so than the things they did, it's the timing. Okay, the things matter. Like doing lighting that matches the mood of the song, doing things that are upbeat in brighter colors, doing things that are slower in dimmer, darker colors. That is important. But hitting things at the right time is more important than that. And that's the skill where you sit in rehearsal and you pay attention and you take notes and you say, hey, this is where the band's going to do this. This is where they're going to do that. You experiment in rehearsal, and then during the service, you're able to hit those moments and be able to bring that impact at the right time. Okay, so I know we just got into this. I know I've given a lot of scenarios here as to how you could possibly lay things out, how you can make a worship service go. But I hope this has been really helpful to you, has it? I hope you've been able from these short videos just to glean some wisdom to be able to say, hey, this is something I can take home to my church context and begin designing, programming, and playing back lights even better than I did before. And if that's the case, hey, that's awesome. We made our goal here, and we would love in the future to help you if you have any needs to learn more over at Learn Stage Lighting Labs. And if you need to buy gear, a lot of times you don't need an integrator. You just need someone to look at your space, tell you what would be a really good fit, and give you a little direction on where to put it, and then be able to get that for you. And that's where we step in at Learn Stage Lighting Gear. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys in the next video. And I would love to know, hey, this is the first time I've done a series like this. Comment below these past 3 videos on church lighting. How did you like them? Was it helpful? Did I go too deep? Did I not go deep enough? I want to know. Let us know in the comments below. Thanks.